Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Monday with the Jocks of All Trades podcast. It is time for Jock Talk. We've had a bit of a break for schedules and spring and crazy, but we're back a little bit. Something to look forward to in the future with us is we may just be doing split shows. So you'll still see Jay and Matt, but primarily you'll see them on Wednesdays, and Kyle and I will pretty much tackle Mondays and potentially Fridays, depending on what our schedule looks like. But we did want to get some stuff back to you. For the second consecutive year, we've now missed the finals. But that's okay. But we're going to talk about the finals today. Let's go ahead and go into the buzz. I was very ill prepared because food, so I'm going to pull that up. Kyle, what did you think about the finals while I'm doing that?
Yeah, series finale 4-2. The Warriors win, obviously. I really thought Boston had a good chance this year. Obviously, with Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I think it's a very dynamic duo. I think the issue is that sometimes I feel like Tatum kind of disappears. And I don't think he played his best in this finals. The other thing is they could obviously use a big-time star in the middle, whether at power forward or center. Horford's just not cutting it anymore. He's a really good role player and always has been, and his best role is on the Celtics for sure. He looked like he's going to retire on the Sixers, but he goes back to the Celtics and does pretty well. But the Warriors side to it, I'm getting even somebody as simple as Otto Porter help them. Andrew Wiggins, I think, really stepped up his game. Kevin Looney, obviously, and then Jordan Poole finding him like in the second round a couple years ago. And then Klay Thompson coming back, and even though he didn't shoot well, he's still a threat on the court, and that's what you need. So for them to do that without Kevin Durant just kind of shows you that it is a little bit more than star power for the Warriors. It's about team basketball, and with Draymond Green there, even though I think we give him a lot of crap probably, he's a good role player, and he's a good team player too. And sometimes that's all it takes is just everybody getting on the same page, knowing who's the best player out there, i.e. Steph Curry, getting him the ball when you need to, but also being able to pass it up and giving it to your other guys that can just make it happen. So I'm not surprised that it went this way, but I am kind of surprised that both these teams are here at the finals.
Yeah. I had a couple thoughts. I thought we'd just bounce back and forth and see what you think. The first one, obviously, Curry is now more efficient in the finals in a shorter time span than LeBron has been during an 18, almost 19-year career. Is Curry the player of this generation? That was my biggest thought coming out of this.
I would say he's like 1B. I'd put LeBron at 1A.
Yeah.
Or 1, honestly. And like I think Luke's not here. And I don't give a lot of crap to LeBron. Like I'm not a big fan of the dude, obviously. However, he's a great time basketball player, one of the best ever. Like it's undeniable. But Steph Curry also changed the game, I think. Yeah. I know a lot of kids, like I don't know a lot of kids, but like kids that I do know, it's not anymore. I want to be like LeBron. I want to be Steph Curry. Yeah. I want to be the shooter. Like that's the sniper. Like that's the kind of player that I think a lot of people want to be. Now LeBron still transcends generations, and there's a lot of players out there now that just came into the draft that has LeBron as their favorite player. Like he still transcends, a number of generations, but Steph Curry is definitely has to be up there. I think Colin Cowherd had like his Mount Rushmore and then like a mini Mount Rushmore, and he put Steph Curry on the mini one. I think it's a stupid segment, but anyway, I think a lot of people would agree that he is one of the most popular and one of the most like iconic basketball players of this era, just because how he changed the game.
Absolutely. That was the thought process where I was going to get to, but you got it, so that's good. The second one, building teams through the draft works, and it's fun. Yeah. I feel like, oh God, it's money. Oh God, of course they got there because he signed Kawhi. Like, I wasn't mad. I was like, okay, I'm a Boston fan, so I was biased, but I was like, okay, all those years of taking on those first round draft picks, constantly crapping out year after year, paid off. They figured it out. They worked hard and they got there. The Warriors, same way. This has been a long build for them. Pieces here and there, itty bitty little things, just getting them to the right spot. And I'm not upset. Like, it was fun to watch because, well, that's a different one, but it was fun to watch because LeBron wasn't involved, first of all. Everybody has to admit that. Like, you get tired of the Tom Brady's and LeBrons constantly playing in a Super Bowl or the finals. It's a matter of fact. But it was cool seeing the Celtics and the Warriors and both just going, okay, most of those guys that are their premier guys, they drafted. And that was just really enjoyable to watch. It was fun basketball. Was it painful being a fan? Of course. Like, some of those games did not go how I wanted to, but I could not be more impressed by Curry exploding for, 43 in one game? And then in the next game, Klay Thompson was the big man. And then in game one, Horford was the top scorer out of everybody. Like, it was just so fun seeing, like, how these teams work. However, I am going to skip to my 5 and then come back to 4 and 3. I don't expect either team to return next year. If you look at both paths, the Warriors had it really easy. All it takes is one big signing to a team and them figuring it out, and the Warriors have a harder path. Well, I mean, look at last year. The Suns were there, not the Warriors. Like, that should tell you how weird the West is. And the East, this is the first time I think I can say this for a bunch of years. I've felt this way this past season. I think it's going to continue. The East is actually more difficult than the West. For the first time in a long time, the East is this close. And if you look at all the games that the Celtics played through, they played multiple game 6s and game 7s to get to the finals, which is why I'm saying they're good. I think they're good. Duh. But you've still got Brooklyn, unless Brooklyn falls apart, of course, with Kyrie and KD. You've still got Milwaukee. You've still got I'll give you this one, and you're going to hate it. Philly. You still got Philly. Philly knows what they're doing. They're not stupid. You've got the Heat. Like, I could just keep going on and on. The Hawks were there at one point in time. They just need one or two pieces, and they're there. But you look at the West, and it's maybe 3 teams and then everybody else. So I don't know that it's going to be a repeat. I think some people from the East are going to go to the West to get away from that, and it's going to balance more. But I don't think either one of them are going to be in the finals next year.
Yeah, it's hard because I think a lot of those teams that you named are not just one star player away, but like a star player that fits.
Yeah.
But that's not as difficult as it sounds. Like, honestly, if James Harden was James Harden at 25 years old, I think the Sixers could have been in there. You know, like, if you it's hard because I think he still has that left in him. I just really haven't seen it recently.
Mm-hmm.
But if he like,
he's getting paid a ridiculous amount. What does he have to work for?
Right. But like, if he becomes like, or just goes back a little bit, reverts a little bit back to what we know that he can be, like, I think the Sixers can be there. I think the Bucks, they get just another Drew Holiday type of player. I think they're there. The Hawks, I think maybe a little bit too far, just because I'm not quite sold on anybody other than Trae Young.
It depends on what they do with John Collins. If they can ship Collins for better pieces, they'll be in it.
And Trae Young, to me, is a really good player, but he's not like the.
He's not Curry Jr.
No, and I don't think he's like dominant. Like, he scares people. You know, like, you put Curry out there, even though he's small, he scares people. I think Jaylen Brown scares people. I think Giannis scares people. I think Joel Embiid scares people. To me, Trae Young doesn't really do that quite yet. I don't know if he ever will.
The only person that gets scared of Trae Young is Ben Simmons. Anyways.
But yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to be very hard for both of them to come back. I think the Mavericks are closer than we think. The Mavericks are a little bit of a weird team, but they are a similar team to the Celtics, I would say, just because they don't really go out and sign these massive names, but they really play good basketball together. And I think there might be a player away from – I mean, they just got Christian Wood in a trade. He's not bad. I think they're a couple pieces away from making a Dirk Nowitzki type of run with the Mavericks.
That's what I was going to say. Yep.
So, it'll be interesting next year because a lot of the stars are just kind of, I think, petering out a little bit. And the new ones are starting to come up. Like, i.e. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Bam Adebayo and Luka,
Ja Morant.
obviously. Who?
Ja Morant.
John Morant. He's really good. He talks a little bit too much for me, but he's a really good player.
Do you
Anthony
know who he
Edwards.
reminds me of?
Who's that?
AI.
A little bit.
He got the mentality. He's got the ball skills. He reminds me of AI.
He's got a little bit more bounce to him than.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, he's taller.
AI had bounce, but yeah, Morant skies over people. But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Like you said, there's a lot of teams right behind them that could have easily, couple different possessions, a couple different moments in the game, it could have swung, and we could have seen a different team, the Celtics, in there. But good on them. They've always been a really solid team, really good organization. But like the other teams, they're probably a player away from just being that completely dominant team. So
I'm going to comment one comment that I had walking away on each team, and then I'm done. Draymond, I still think Draymond is being carried at this point by the great core of the Warriors. In the early runs, yes, he was dominant. He was great defensively. He wasn't a liability. Then he started to become one with his antics, with his terrible fouling, with his complaining every call. Like, if I was Curry, I would not want to play with Draymond Green. I would want somebody that's going to come in and do the work instead of complaining and trying to get calls. Like, it's LeBron Jr. is what Draymond is. But you know what? I can actually stand LeBron more than I can stand Draymond Green. Like, he's just like, do you get that? Do you feel that? Like, just shut up.
I used to, but now I don't. Those kind of players to me are very beneficial for a team. Guys that you don't need to get the ball to, but they still show up and do their job. Like playing NBA 2K22, this might be a horrible example, but I like having like 3 guys that can score and 2 other guys that just rebound and pass them at the ball. Like, if you have to share it to everybody on the court, it just doesn't bode that well. But if you have a few guys
look at the Nets. You're right.
Yeah, Curry, Clay, and then Jordan Poole or Wiggins on the court at the same time, you got 3, and then the other 2 just kind of do work and do their jobs. So, but you have to have guys that are willing to do that, and not everybody is willing to do that. So,
my last thought is on Boston. You were right, but here was my biggest takeaway. Everybody struggled. Everybody struggled in this. I could pick on anyone specifically. But when you're lauded to be like the team leader, you're lauded to be the guy for a team. You need to be the guy for a team. And Tatum put up excellent work. His stats are kind of on par with Kobe at this point on like his age, because everybody compares him to him anyways. He liked Kobe. Like, his stats are on par. Like, he's not bad. The problem is he isn't able to respond to big moments. He's just there as a like. It's the best thing about the Celtics and the worst. They're such a great team. There's no great star because they function so well as a team. And the problem with that is, if anyone struggles, it's on everybody. The amount of turnovers that man committed alone in the finals and in the playoff run was ridiculous. Like, Boston needs to be able to rely on Tatum, and Tatum has to be able to respond, or that Celtics team is busted. And I know people are talking about trading Jaylen Brown right now for Kevin Durant, to which I say absolutely not, unless you're giving us 3 first-rounders in addition to Kevin Durant, because at this point I'd take Jaylen Brown over Kevin Durant, because KD, since going to the Nets, and look, I know he got hurt, but even when he came back, like, he didn't look right. Like, he didn't look like KD. So Boston just needs to hang on to what they have, maybe sign some more rotational pieces, and just go again. Like, it was just a matter of the other team was better.
Yeah, and I think Brown and Tatum will both like push each other. Eventually, cream rises to the top. Is that the saying? I don't know. Or foam? I don't know. One of those guys will have to be the guy. And I know I don't watch as much basketball as some people, but even just watching the Sixers for the last few years, it was Toby and Ben and Jimmy and Embiid, and you're like, who's gonna take the last shot here? You know. But eventually, right now, it's like Embiid is the guy, and you need the guy. At the end of the day, at the end of the game, because a lot of games are decided by one possession, one big play, one big shot. You need like everybody on that team to say, okay, we're going to give him the ball. No matter if you're a 100% effective team by passing the ball the whole freaking game, you need that one guy that's like going to step up and say, I want the ball. I'm going to make a last shot. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to get us that victory. And the Celtics, I don't know who it is between Tatum and Brown, but I think they need to figure that out this offseason.
Yeah. But
anyway,
yeah. It was a good finals, though. I have to admit. Like, that was like, once I realized the matchups that could happen, like halfway through the playoffs, I'm like, wouldn't it be wild if it was the Celtics and Warriors? I'd love to watch that. And I got it. Did it go the way I wanted? No. Do I love Curry? Yes, but I'm still a Celtics fan. Anyways, painful, but a really good finals. I think kind of the best one I've watched in a couple of years. But we'll see what happens. But I was pretty happy with it. So would have been better with a title, but that's Boston for you. Anyways, let's head on over to NFL highlights. I'm gonna let you preface this one because
we've talked about it probably a lot. A lot of people have, so I just want to make it brief. The NFL is pushing for an indefinite suspension of Watson, and I think they have made a agreement, like some of the people that are accusing him and his party, to like agree to a settlement. However, it doesn't really matter in this situation because the NFL might actually suspend him for a whole year. I don't know if it's exactly true, but I think his guaranteed money, it might be $1 million, and the rest of it's like bonus if he plays. I think the Browns were kind of preparing for this. And beyond just Watson, because we've talked about him enough, the Browns are just stupid, I think, for like knowing this is going to happen and still trading a boatload for him and then putting Baker on the bench and just letting him whine about it.
Well, worse than that, making him mad, telling him you're terrible, basically, like publicly. I'm like, he played through an injury for you. How many other of your quarterbacks you've had through your history would have done that? Like, you screwed the pooch really bad with Baker.
He's been the best quarterback for them since like Bernie Kosar. I don't know who, but like
I think you meant Brandon Weeden. Sorry.
Yeah. Brandon Weeden. I'm not going to decide who's guilty and who's innocent. That's not my job here, but I can decide who's a stupid franchise and who's not. And the Browns are a stupid franchise.
Yep.
And that's my main takeaway from this is just like you kind of knew it was going to happen. The NFL it's a league. It's a inner circle of old white dudes at the top who probably have a cult going on. It's like you knew this is going to happen, and you still trade for him anyway. And it's a shame for Baker Mayfield. It's a shame, obviously, for this whole situation. But as a Browns fan, I would just feel horrible because I think you had a good thing going, and you might have just ruined it. So,
yeah. They did it to themselves. That's how I feel.
Yep.
And do I think he perhaps deserves the indefinite suspension? Maybe. I mean, look, Kamara got 6 games for punching somebody.
Right.
Ben Roethlisberger got 12 for his stuff. Like everybody's gotten something extensive for small. Calvin Ridley got a whole year for betting.
Right.
What do you think, based on the precedents, Watson is going to get? 21 cases, not 1, not 2, or not 21. I'm sorry, 26. Although I think it bumped down to 24. Either way, a lot. Like, it makes sense. Is he guilty or innocent? Who knows? But based on what you've meted out to anybody else, I think even if you just give him 1, like that's a slap on the wrist. Like Calvin Ridley got 1 for betting. Right. You want to put sexual misconduct and betting. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. I think he's going to get a lengthy suspension.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but stranger things have happened in the NFL. So, like the NFL, the way they hand out punishments and deal with owners and they're never equal. So,
if he played for the Patriots, nothing would happen. But
Dan Snyder, who's a horrible human being, nothing has happened to him yet. So, you don't know. You don't. It's a shame.
Yeah. You kind of preface this next one, so I'll let you do that one too.
So Daniel Jones kind of came out and said his lack of success weighs on him a great deal, and he's motivated to improve under this new system with Brian Dable. I think he's going to. My question is, do you actually think, with Brian Dable now at the helm, with their added offensive lineman in the draft, with Saquon looking better, do you think he will improve?
I think to a point that you made right before you asked that, to answer that, we have to ask, did the Giants improve? Because if they didn't, then absolutely not, because we know the Eagles loaded up. The Cowboys did some stuff, like nothing groundbreaking, but they did enough to move the needle positively. The Commanders, who knows? Wentz, it'll depend on whether he looks like Eagles wins or if he looks like Colts wins. So who knows? So I can't really say. I know the division is getting better. So let's break down some of the stuff they did. They finally addressed the offensive and defensive line. We've talked before that we think that the game starts at the line. So if you can control the line, it's usually pretty good for you. Our biggest complaint has been for the Giants for a couple years, been their O-line. So maybe the addition of Evan Neal with the guy from Georgia, who I can't think of right now, also has kind of a white name, but he's not white. I don't know. Thomas?
Oh, Andrew Thomas. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, there we go. See, white name. Anyways, I think with those two additions, they're young. Well, not additions. They've had Thomas. But anyways, they're young. They're going to be able to work well. Saquon getting healthy, I'm not going to get on that board yet because every time I do, it blows up in my face. I think if Saquon can stay healthy for the whole year, that is great for the Giants franchise. I think behind a new and improved O-line, that's great for Saquon and Daniel Jones. Weapons. I don't feel like they did enough to address the kind of weapons that Daniel Jones will have. So this is where I'm going to put it on Daniel Jones. If he can improve under Dable's scheme that he's going to put in with the Giants, if he can improve his accuracy, which has kind of been lacking at times, we could see kind of like a Mac Jones type of year. Like Mac Jones didn't have really great weapons, but he had a good O-line. He had good running backs to be able to dump it off to, and he had a good system where he wasn't asked to make a 60-yard bomb all the time.
Yeah.
So I think if you take that kind of level of give him the minimum and then give him more if he's able to succeed, but the minimum might work. So long story to get to the answer. I think he will. The Giants have improved enough, just enough, that I think we'll see a difference. Will it mean a Super Bowl trip? Probably not. Will it mean maybe winning the division? Who knows? Weird things happen every year. My bet is probably going to be on the Eagles because obvious reasons. They stole the draft, first of all. But who knows? I think he'll improve. It's a question of, will the Giants as a team improve?
Yeah, I think it's about, even if he does improve, which I think he will it be enough improvement for them to keep him past next year?
No, and they're going to expect a playoff run to keep him.
Yeah, and he's really going to have to wow them for them to keep him like beyond next year. And I just don't know if he will do that. No. I don't think he will, but I think he will improve. And I think he's still probably worthy of being a starter, maybe a bottom 10 starter, but a starter nonetheless. But I don't think he'll do enough for them to keep him beyond next year. So we'll see, but I doubt it.
No. I definitely agree with that. I just accidentally closed that out. I think Spicy Meatball is next. Yep. It's time for Spicy A-Meatball, which is our hot take segment. Look, I'm going to get right into it. There is one big piece of news. It has been the biggest piece of news for college football for the past couple months. Arch Manning committed to the Texas Longhorns after a long debate as to whether he would attend Georgia, Alabama. I think LSU was in there at one point in Texas. On one hand, it's a great brand move. Go somewhere that's not already established. Go somewhere that's struggled mightily since, 2010, 2009? Yeah. Like, it's been a long time since Texas has been back. Sam Ehlinger. But look, it's a great move for him because if he can succeed with Texas, you're going to make a big name for yourself. Especially Texas has been out of the college football world really for a long time in terms of relevance. I think he could. Sark is not stupid. Sark was with us for some good transitional periods. He's proven he knows what to do with the weapons that he has. He's good offensively. I think the defense needs to improve, obviously, but we're talking about the Big 12, so we'll see about that. But for me, I'm just going to come out and say I didn't think it was a good move. If the risk and reward here is too high. And let me explain. So Quinn Ewers right now will most likely be the starter when the season begins. He also was a very high 5-star recruit coming out of college. He was the number 2 recruit. Manning is number 1, which means their talent levels are way up there compared to everybody else on the board. So let's just start with Texas's quarterback room. You have to beat Ewers. If Ewers comes out and puts together a winning season, me as a coach, I'm not sure next season I just turn the keys over to somebody else when I have that same quarterback that knows my system and succeeded. So for that to happen, I'll go ahead and give you the minimum that needs to happen with Texas is a bowl win. Not a bowl appearance, not a winning season. You need a bowl win to say, okay, Ewers can do something. He needs to be a starter. So first of all, Arch Manning has to beat out another 5-star, very high 5-star quarterback that just transferred to Texas. So that gives me my second problem here for Arch. You have to hope that he transfers, basically, if he's successful. Because if he does not, you are going to transfer. And that could put you in sticky situations. Look, Alabama moved on. We signed Eli Holstein, also a 5-star quarterback recruit. He looks good. Alabama wasn't really waiting for Manning. I understand why he didn't take Alabama. That I'm not mad about that. I don't understand why he didn't take Georgia. I'll give him that one because you and I both know Stetson Bennett is like, in terms of tier quarterbacks, way, way down there. He gets bailed out by his team and his defense. So I don't understand why he didn't take Georgia because you could have been with Kirby Smart and you could have drafted really high, a la Matthew Stafford. I didn't get that. So your choice, first of all, the quarterbacks you're going to have to beat out. Let's go back to Texas for a minute. Your weapons. You didn't win the Addison sweepstakes. Granted, he would have been there for a year, but whenever you sign a big-name talent, I'm noticing this now with the transfer portal, it tends to pull other people that aren't sure where to go. Look at USC as a prime example for that. As soon as Lincoln Riley went somewhere and the first person moved, it's like all the dominoes fell and everybody came to USC. So I think if they had gotten Addison, a lot would have changed. But you have what? Xavier Worthy. I do like Xavier Worthy, but he's still young. He's still kind of unproven. You're going to have Jaleel Billingsley as a weapon. He's a good tight end when he has hands.
If Bijan stays, but I doubt he will.
He won't. He'll draft. He needs to. So it's going to leave you with a big question mark heading into the second year. If yours doesn't do well, all your good talent is gone besides a receiver. So and you and I both know, how many years has it been now that like a Texas player hasn't been picked in the draft at all?
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable how few Texas players have been drafted. It's not just
good draft classes.
Yeah, in the past. It's not just they can't find a good coach. They can't find good players. That's surprising. Like even I don't know. Rutgers finds a gem every once in a while, puts them to the NFL, it's pretty outstanding how little talented players they have. And obviously, that's changing here soon, I think. But you're right. It's a question of Ewers or Arch Manning. I think in a perfect world, Manning could sit for a year and Ewers could leave, and then Manning would play the next year after that.
How likely do you think that is? I'm just curious.
I don't think it's likely. The way that college football is right now with the transfer portal, if you're not getting a position right away, you transfer, I don't think that's likely. It's not. Players rarely do that. The last time I saw someone do that was like Jalen Hurts, who stayed for a year and then. After that, he transferred. It's rare for players to stick around. So it's just for a player like Manning to go to Texas to try to revive them. It seems like it's a pretty impossible feat the last few years. So
It's very risky. That was my biggest complaint for him. It's very risky.
It is. Like, I would rather go to – honestly, I'd rather go to Michigan than Texas. Honestly, I would, just because they have a pro system. They play also in a very good division, and you're going to have a good offensive line in front of you. You might not have the best weapons, but I think you're going to be able to play from day one. You're going to be the guy, and you're going to progress. And you're going to be competitive. Texas, I don't even know if you'll be competitive. So
it's true.
Risky for sure.
Anyhow, let's take a moment to talk about some of our sponsors and our friend casts. First of all, thank you to Fresh Cuts and Caleb Kemper over at Fresh Cuts for being our first and currently only sponsor, although that is subject to change. More about that later. Fresh Cuts, it's not just a haircut, it's an experience. I know that because then I'll look in the mirror after I get a haircut and I no longer look like a barbarian. Fresh Cuts, it's not just a haircut, it's an experience. Book with Caleb now at www.freshcutsbarbershop.com. Again, Mondays and Tuesdays are pretty open for him in terms of haircuts. And be sure to get some of his products. I use this pomade. It smells really great and keeps me, again, from looking like a hobo. So we're going to move on to Afro-Latinos. You may not have seen or heard from them in a while. They are under construction. Things are changing for them. And it's soon to be Culture Corner with Aubin, and, well, I guess he'll put out more information about that later. But Afro-Latinos will be no longer. We will have the Culture Corner podcast that we'll be associated with. But just to give everyone an update on where our friends are and why haven't we seen them. Another one for you is Rules of the Frame. Connor was going to be with us recently, but his trip kind of got messed up for his vacation. So it's been a little while since he can be with us. He's a big movie buff. And I guess a small flex, he'll be teaching a couple movie courses at a university soon. So we just thought it'd be nice to have him come on and talk films with us and kind of some of the background. And then, of course, our good friend Billy Martell at 1,000 Wives of Weird. Look, they watch all kinds of weird films. Some I've never heard of. But it's usually really funny, and they give a good explanation of how it was made, why it's good, why you should watch it. And he's just really fun to be around. You've probably seen him on here a couple times. Anyways, thanks for hanging with that. I have to update that. We have another business that is joining us. If you'll indulge me to look for his credentials for a sec. Because I promised him I would, and then we didn't do anything for a while, so my brain sucks. If you're looking for some really cool pictures, maybe for your dad's birthday, your birthday, whatever, look at Steve Wood Illustration on Facebook. You can find him at Dr. Steven the Wood. He does all kinds of nerd fandoms, Star Wars, Batman, Marvel, Disney stuff, just anything that you're kind of looking for. Kaijus, they're there. But yeah, check him out also. Sorry, it would be a lot easier if I had a picture to go with that, but I don't right this second. Okay, so we got all that. Kyle, I think you have a let's take out the trash for us, do you not?
Yeah, it's kind of a soft one. I just want to take out the NBA draft a little bit. I think they can do so much better with marketing, just with introducing players, with how they conduct the telecast. I think they can do so much better. It seems like they pull out all the stops for the NFL draft. And listen, I think the NFL draft will always outweigh the NBA draft. It's just how it is. It's 7 rounds. It's a massive deal. You're drafting like 7 to 10 players. For each team, like, it's massive. And I know NBA only draft like maybe 2, if that. But it's obvious they put a lot more effort into the NFL draft than the NBA. So maybe it's not the NBA draft. Maybe it's the news stations that are hosting it. NFL goes all out with their guys that they have. I mean, Mel Kiper is kind of an idiot, but he's at least popular. And for the most part, he has some knowledge. Getting guys like John Gruden in the past to come on. Former GMs go on there. The NBA draft had Kendrick Perkins on ESPN. Like, come on, that's they ain't kind of gonna draw anybody in. That's gonna push him out.
Perkins alone.
He's funny, but like in terms of knowledge about prospects from college to NBA, that's not his thing. It's not his thing. Even Jay Billis, I feel like, who's very knowledgeable about college basketball players, they barely let him speak.
I wish they just let Shams do it. Shams tell us all the stuff on tweets, anyways. Like
Shams or Adrian Wojnarowski, whatever. Those guys, I feel like would like have one of them on your stations.
They would love that.
They'd be just like, now this NBA draft didn't have a lot of things moving in terms of trades. It was pretty boring. That's kind of why it was slow. But also, the NBA draft hasn't had like a new guy in a while, right? Like this next star's in the making. The next, it's been a while since that's happened, I feel like, and I don't know when there's going to be another the guy, but it seems like we're going to find all-stars, in picks like 6 to 15, 6 to 20, rather than it's just going to be 1, 2, and 3. It used to be, 1, 2, and 3, they're the automatic like all-timers for the next decade. It doesn't seem like it's that anymore. So it's getting more interesting. However, it's just not as exciting. So,
yeah, I get that. You're spot on. Let's transition over to our NCAA Newswire. We talked about it like right after the Natty. We talked the top 10 heading into next year, but obviously we're missing a lot of information. We're missing a lot of draft stuff. We're missing a lot of everything. Now that the draft's over, now that we know who's gone, now that we know some more people that have moved around in the transfer portal, let's go ahead and do a summer top 10. Let's make this interesting too. Let's do 10 up to 1. And then you do your 10, I'll do my 10, so on and so forth. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay, cool. You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. Number 10, I'm going to put Utah here. Look, they really dueled with Ohio State, that we are talking about being a massive power for next year. And look, like they surprised everybody. They took out Oregon twice, which Oregon was the darling to win the Pac-12 last year. They won the Pac-12. Like they played really good, maybe not exciting football, but consistent football. And sometimes consistent football is all you need to be in the playoffs. And look, Oregon lost a lot of people. There's really one other big threat to them in the Pac-12. Depending on what happens, though, they could easily run the table and be back in. It would be the weirdest team to ever make it. But I like their offense. I think they kind of showed that they can hang in the big games with people. I don't know. Now, 10 was kind of a hard spot for me, but I felt they kind of deserved to at least be in the top 10 because they did perform really well last year. And I think they could do the same. Like the recipe for success is there. Would I put them higher than that? Absolutely not. But for me, it has to be Utah.
I'm going to say Oregon. Dan Lanning coming over to Oregon is pretty impressive. Having guys like Noah Sewell still there, adding some key transfers. Bo Nix coming in, even though I don't think he's great, I think he does fit that system really well. They're just an exciting team to me. And I think with those additions, they lost to Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. They were Pac-12 runner-up. They performed pretty well in a lot of games, just they couldn't figure it out altogether. But I think they do have the potential to be a really good team next year. Championship worthy, probably not. But I think with the defensive players that they do have, I think if Bo Nix keeps the ball safe, if he limits his turnovers, I think they can be a really competitive team next year. So I'm going to go Oregon number 10.
Cool. I'm going to go to 9. I'm going to go down in the heart of Texas. Look, the Big 12 is kind of wide open now. Oklahoma was the powerhouse, but holy cow, they lost a lot. And look, I know they brought in Dylan Gabriel. He's been pretty good at UCF for the past couple seasons, but I don't think Dylan Gabriel is necessarily, the Jalen Hurts or the Baker Mayfield or the, Kyler Murray that's probably going to be. Texas, however, has Quinn Ewers, has Xavier Worthy, Bijan Robinson. They've made some movements on defense. They signed a couple guys transferred there. I think they have the table here because the talent in the Big 12 is always – and look, you just took Oklahoma. You took a lot of things out of Oklahoma. So I think Texas has the potential to be the number one guy coming out of the Big 12. Like you said with 10, do I think that's going to mean championship aspirations? Absolutely not. I just think they're kind of in the best position in the Big 12 to be ranked in the top 10.
I'm going to go with Utah at number 9, I think. No, I'm going to go Michigan. Michigan, number 9. Kind of debating on where to put them, but they had a really successful year last year, even though they didn't really perform that well in the last part of it. But they got there, and that's the big thing. And even though Jim Harbaugh flirted with the NFL and he lost some of his coordinators, I think the system still remains. I think they have really good players on defense. They always perform very well. I think Cade McNamara being there and their backup, J.J. McCarthy, I think either of those guys are good enough to win the job, perform well. Andrew Anthony returns. Blake Corum does. Donovan Edwards. They have just a lot of guys that are replenishing in their system, and they're just a really solid team. Like, they remind me of the good old Big Ten back 10 years ago, where it was just really good defense and a run-heavy offense. But it seemed to work for them, and I think it'll work again this year. And the competition in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State, I don't think will be much. It's coming from a Penn State fan. So I think they have a really good path to becoming a top 10 team next year.
I like it. My number 8 is Michigan. Kind of for the same reasons. Did they lose a lot? Yes. But did Harbaugh finally prove that he can do enough to push them to the playoffs? Yes. They ran the unfortunate path of running into the Georgia Bulldogs. Not the cards you want to pick if you're trying to get to the championship game. Anyways, I think J.J. McCarthy is probably going to be their best option, but McNamara is good too. They kind of had that problem last year of, like, who is it? And I think whoever wins will be, you're right, to be able to do enough and just kind of rely on that good defense. The question will be, did we lose too much on that defense to be effective? They're going to need a new Ojabo. They're going to need a new Daxton Hill. They're going to need a new Aiden Hutchinson. Like, they're going to need guys to step up because your biggest obstacle is going to be Ohio State, obviously. And I think if you do beat them, obviously you launch up on this list. If you don't, look, Ohio State is stacked coming into this year. So I get it. But, yeah, Michigan, I agree with a lot of what you were saying about Michigan. They have a solid team. I wouldn't say elite, but a solid team.
I think next, this is number 8, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Utah. I mean, just taking Ohio State to, like, the last couple of possessions there is impressive in itself. I know they lost Devin Lloyd, but bringing in some transfers in from the SEC, I think that helps a lot. They have really good running back, Tavion Thomas. I think their quarterback's fine, not tremendous, but in that division and that conference, with the way they performed against Ohio State last year at the end, a little bit unproven going into this year. Obviously, it's the preseason top 10, but they have some experience in the secondary, and I think they're going to be a good team this year. Performed well last year, even though it was 10-4. I think they showed that they had the right stuff to be a really good team. So I'm going to go Utah at number 8.
Cool. 7, this will be the controversial pick, and that's okay. 7, I'm going to go with Clemson. Look, Dabo Swinney has won a lot. Dabo Swinney has proved that he knows what he's doing. I think last year was a down year for Clemson, and I hate saying that because we've had our duels with Clemson over the past couple years. Look, Cade Klubnik, that was a massive win for that organization whose biggest problem was quarterback. So either Ukulele is going to figure it out or he's going to get replaced very early with a 5-star. Does that sound familiar to you? A 5-star quarterback coming in to play for Clemson and decimating everyone? That's right. It should. Trevor Lawrence did the same thing. So he's proven he has options now. And that defense is good. That defense is very, very good. I almost said Jalen Carter. Anyways, not the right team. But a lot of those guys are projected to be top picks right now in the draft. They've been around for a couple years. A lot of them are seniors and juniors. They've been building up for this. I really do just think last year was a down year. I just can't get rid of the fact that Clemson does recruit incredibly well. Clemson generates their talent really well. I just think they were one quarterback away from being a better team last year. So now that they have options, now that Ukulele has a year under his belt to kind of figure out what he's doing, look to see what they do. Again, I think they're playoff bound. Not somebody will trip them up like Georgia Tech or Wake Forest or something stupid. But they deserve to be up there. They're good.
Next, I'm going to go with USC at number 7. Listen, they got so many different transfers in. Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, Travis Dye from Oregon, Mario Williams, a lot of defensive players. This is a wild card team, but Lincoln Riley is a massive home run for them. I think it's just a really good coach to have for USC for this new era of USC football. Addison's the Blitnikoff winner from last year, so that's pretty good to get him as a transfer. But again, in the Pac-12, they weren't a good defense last year, and it's probably going to be their Achilles heel again. But if they can get Caleb Williams on the right track, it's going to be a very dangerous team. So I'm going to go USC at number 7.
So number 6, I'm going to go with USC.
Yep.
Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, Travis Dye transferring over from Oregon, Mario Williams coming over from Oklahoma. They just completely retooled their entire offense. They really did. But I'm with you. The reason they're at 6 and not higher than this is we're going to play an old game in every football game that's ever been played. The biggest question is, what is more important, a really good offense or a really good defense? And we've seen teams with really good defense that can win it all and terrible offenses. And we've seen teams with really good offenses and terrible defenses that can win it all. And I honestly think USC falls under the really great offense, wonderful offense, pedestrian defense. And you can't do that. That is not championship material. I think it'll be enough to waste Caleb Williams' first year at USC.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next, I'm going to put Oklahoma up there. I know it's – we got Brett Venables. I think that's pretty impressive.
I agree with that.
Dylan Gabriel coming from what was it? UCF, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a massive addition. I know Texas and Baylor are there, but again, it's Texas and Baylor. It's not the stiffest of competitions right now. No. I still think it's an attractive school. I think they have a lot of good talent left over from that era. I don't think they're just going to go away. Oklahoma's not the kind of school just to, after they lose a coach, just to die. They've been relevant for a while. I think they're going to be good again. So I'm going to go Oklahoma at number 6.
Interesting. Let's go to number 5. This is going to be the greatest high five I ever give this team because we have such a good record against them every time we play them. Notre Dame, honestly. Marcus Freeman was such a great choice after losing Brian Kelly. Honestly, do I think Brian Kelly will see remotely the same success at LSU that he did at Notre Dame? No. Notre Dame is uniquely situated here because they have a solid team. they boast one of the best receiving options in the nation. And Michael Meyer, I don't really know how to pronounce that. Hopefully not Meyer, because he might murder me on Halloween. Anyways, look, he's good. He is. That defense was actually pretty good last year. The question is going to be what to do at quarterback, obviously, because you're now missing Jack Cohn, who wasn't exactly sexy to begin with, and Ian Book you're now missing, and you've done this a couple times where you just slot somebody in and play well enough to get there. Do I think it'll be enough to get them into the playoffs? No. I think it will be enough to get better recruits in, because Freeman has already done an incredible job recruiting as a head coach. So Notre Dame is not going to go away anytime soon. They have the most difficult schedule coming up this upcoming year. And I think if they can navigate that pretty well, they're going to prove to a lot of people we kind of deserve to be top 5, top 10 material. So,
yeah. I'm going to go with Texas A&M next. Now they lost their defensive coordinator to Duke, but getting DJ Durkin away from Ole Miss to call plays. They held their opponents to like 15.9 points last year, and then beating Alabama. But I think even if you catch them off on a bad day, you still have the capability of beating that kind of team. Add on, they got the best recruiting class. I think they're going to pick up a lot of talent from that. And they return, I think, 3 guys on the offensive line. So all that added in, I think they're a very talented team. Now, I don't know if that'll translate to being the 5th best team, but I think they can be capable of that. It's just to be the best, you got to beat the best. And they're going to have to play Alabama again. They're going to play Arkansas again, and Florida, Auburn, LSU, all those teams, obviously. But to be that kind of team last year, even though you really didn't have the talent to bolster it up, but now they do, I think that's just going to improve them for this year, and I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch. So I'm going to go A&M at number 5.
I entirely disagree with you because I have A&M at 4. I'll give them that. Look, when you have some of the richest boosters in the world, you are going to boast your recruit class. I want to beat them so bad, but I have to respect that what they have is actually pretty good. They have Devin Kane, next guy up behind Isaiah Spiller, which he was pretty good. This guy will probably be really good. A&M has had a kind of a long list of good running backs for the past couple of years. Quarterback will be a question. Max Johnson transferred from LSU. He might have the starter there with the experience that he has. Outside of that, who do you give it to? Calzada left. Calzada is at Auburn now. So if they had Calzada, they might have honestly been in the 3rd slot for me, because he's beaten Alabama. He knows how to beat Alabama. And with a arguably not as good of a roster that Alabama had when they beat him. I think that's kind of fair to say. But I will tell you what, I hate Jimbo Fisher, I really do. But he does know how to win. He's proven that he can beat Nick Saban. That was his first assistant that had ever beaten Saban. I think that's going to translate into this next year. Honestly, the key to winning the SEC West is going to come down to the winner of the A&M and Alabama game, I think, honestly. So I have to give it to them. They do know what they're doing. They do have a good defense. Can they win the big games?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's again, they have a lot of talent, but it's just not a ton of experience, especially at positions that matter. So we'll see. I'm going to go Clemson at number 4. If you have guys like Miles Murphy, Xavier Thomas, Tyler Davis, Brian Breesy, all those guys, I remember just being highly touted recruits and being on those All-American games, and all those guys are there. And I think it's just a potential for a very, very nasty defense. Last year, they held opponents to 14.8 points a game. I think it's just going to get better from there.
Yeah.
However, like you mentioned before, Ukulele, if he's not the guy, I think Cade Klubnik can jump in and be good enough for them. And like I said, with some of these teams, their conference isn't the hardest thing in the world. So if you can hold your opponents to under 15 a game, I think your freshman quarterback can step in and
be fine.
And be fine and have enough points to win most of those games. So
I agree with that.
Question marks remain for sure. about Dabo Swinney and about the longevity of this Clemson team, but I think this year they can make a good push for it. So,
the next three, honestly, I could kind of put in any order, and there's really no wrong answer. I just think there are slivers of difference between the three, but we'll start with three. Three is going to be Georgia. I know you won the Natty. I know you did, but you're bringing back the male turd, whatever he is. The mailman. I don't remember. I think it's the mailman. Stetson Bennett's nickname, whatever. You lost your entire defense besides Jalen Carter and Keely Ringo.
And Nolan Smith. Or no, he leave?
Thank you. Look, they are important. They are good. I'll give you that. But you lost how many players on your defense? Do I think you're going to struggle early? Yes. Yes, I do. So I think you're going to have to figure it out and figure it out quick. However, you do play in the SEC East, which isn't exactly known for being incredibly strong. So are you probably going to waltz to an undefeated record again? It's possible. We'll see. I think you're going to hate this because they beat us and you're thinking I'm being biased here. But look, Stetson Bennett was bailed out by his defense how many times last year? Like he is not a takeover like kind of guy. He's not. He has to have the script right for him or he falls apart when he has to improvise. And who helps with that when he loses the ball? The defense. They get him the ball back. They go back to the script and they score. You lost both your running backs. You lost George Pickens. You now have Stetson Bennett and you have like three guys from that defense. Do I think you're going to win another title this year? No. I think this is going to be an in-between year where you kind of load back up. Kirby gets everybody focused again because, look, you're not Saban. You're not going to do back-to-back. Like, Saban knew how to do that because Saban did it and then did it again. Like, he knows how to do that because he knows how to coach them over. Okay, great. I don't know if you know this rule. I told Luke about this a while back. Saban has a 24-hour rule every time they win a championship. You have 24 hours to celebrate it, then we're back to work. I'm like, that's ridiculous. But look at the other people that were like that. Kobe Bryant, the Bulls back in the day. Like, that kind of mentality does well. Do I think Kirby is that? I don't know. I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to have a hard time. And the real question is this a dynasty or was that a fluke? So we'll see.
Yeah, mine's a mishmash of all those three teams, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama.
Yep.
I think they're all going to be really good next year, so I don't think it really matters for me to put them in an order, but I agree with you. They have lost a lot on defense. Good thing they have like good players like Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo as this next wave of probably superstars. But their offense does return some offensive linemen. Yep. I think they're pretty good. It's going to be a lot like Clemson, I think. Now Bennett is more experienced than anybody on Clemson's offensive side of the ball. It's just he's going to have to do more, honestly. He's going to have to be better. He's going to have to do more. He's going to have to be like more than what he was this last year.
I don't think
for them to like be there at the end. And I don't know if he has it in him. I don't. So we'll see what he does with that offense. They lost some good weapons, but he does have the experience, and that is notable. I think that is a little bit underrated. But he's going to have to put up some numbers, I think, for them to be there at the end. So
agreed. Yep. I'll go to number 2 is Ohio State. You're going to claim bias because you know who number 1 is. I will give you the only reason Ohio State was not at the number 1 spot and lands at 2. Their defense was probably one of the worst Ohio State defenses we've seen in the past 10 years alone. Their defense contributed to their loss against Michigan. Their defense and Stroud having some growing pains contributed to their loss at Oregon at home. Like, it was not that Ohio State vaunted defense that we're used to seeing. Yeah. This was one of those cases where I think USC is very similar to them, and their offense was phenomenal. If they could outscore you, they won immediately. Hands down, didn't even need to play defense. Doesn't matter. Put it back in his hand, we'll score. I I know they made some changes. They hired the guy from Oklahoma State. He's their new defensive coordinator. They moved some people around. I don't know yet. We'll have to see it because it is going to be big changes to their defense, how their defense is run, all that. But I will say when you return, not Master Teague, Travion Henderson, when you return Jackson Smith and Jigba, when you return Marvin Harrison Jr., when you return Julian Fleming, when you return Stroud, which I'll give Stroud this, he was a Heisman finalist, and he's a Heisman favorite this year. There's a reason for that. He is a young gun. He is good. I'll give him that. However, that defense has too many question marks because we haven't seen anything since the end of the season for me to say they are head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, I think defensive line, I think they're solid, but after that, there is some question marks. I think they've been known for having some pretty good secondary pieces going to the NFL.
Yeah.
I didn't really see that last year. I don't know if I see that this year. So it's, they've gotten some really good recruiting classes, but I feel like a lot of them have been offensive stars, not necessarily defensive stars. So if they can pick that back up, they're right there at the top. But like you said, the defense is pretty much unknown besides the defensive line. But, yeah, their offense, oof, they got some receivers, man. Alabama's right there, probably number one for wide receiver U, but Ohio State's making a run for it. I'll give them that.
Yep. And then obviously one is Alabama. I'll be brief with it. Look, when we return two of the best players nationally, period, with the guy that put up better stats than Bosa did in 1 year and Ndamukong Suh did in 1 year. Like, I can keep naming defensive players that are in the NFL that he beat in 1 year and didn't get a Heisman invite. I'll still be salty about that forever. But, look, he deserves it. He is very good. Will Anderson Jr., it doesn't really matter what the rest of that defense looks like. You got to deal with him, and you got to figure out how to deal with him, which they are returning a lot of guys. We didn't lose that much this past year, really. And we've got Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'm cool with that. Shoot, what's that safety I keep thinking of?
Battle.
Thank you. Jordan Battle. We have Jordan Battle. The biggest question will be, we kind of have the opposite problem of Ohio State. Yes, we're returning the Heisman winner. Yes, we have Bryce Young. The problem with that is, who's our running back? Because, Jahmyr Gibbs is good, but will he be the starter? Will it be Jace McClellan? We've got guys sitting behind him. I don't know. But let's just say it's filled with Jahmyr Gibbs. Fine. Then we have a problem on the O-line. We lost Evan Neal, which was kind of the only reason that Bryce Young ever stayed alive last year because he got sacked a lot.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a problem. And then obviously the third problem that everyone is going to talk about are receivers. I know. We took in Tyler Harrell from Louisville. We took Jermaine Burton from Georgia. Did we take anybody else?
You got Eli Ricks.
Eli Ricks from LSU. You're right, cornerback. So do I think we addressed the needs? Yes. Do I know that they're the same talent level as the people we lost? No. So that's going to be the big question mark for me. But I do think when you return probably the best defensive player and one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, you're kind of going to be at number one until proven otherwise. So I could be biased. Tell me if I am, but I don't think so. Like, this is one of the better teams we've seen in a while for Alabama.
Yeah, their offense, I think, is a little bit suspect outside of Bryce Young. But, Georgia's path to the championship last year was their defense. And then Alabama bringing back Jordan Battle, I think he's really good. Bringing in Eli Ricks, Kool-Aid McKinstry, hilarious name. Will Anderson, the best player in college football. Still having Henry TOTO. It's a really good defense. Returning 8 starters on defense, that's pretty rare. Then you add those guys in. It could really be a dominant defense for them. And then Bryce Young has just got to play within himself, and he'll be fine. He's still going to put up gaudy numbers, but, I don't think he'll have to do everything this year.
No.
Because I wouldn't think so. Stranger things have happened, but I wouldn't think he'd have to be as like Russell Wilson back there running around and throwing Hail Marys and bombs. And
I hope not.
I don't think he'll have to do that this year. I think that's what will make Alabama dangerous. So, yeah.
I like it. But, yeah, that's our NCAA top 10. that's where we're going to wrap it up for the night. We have some more stuff that we can talk about next week. If we don't do it next week, we'll probably do a Smash Popcorn next week. But again, thank you guys for being here. So sorry we've been away for a long time. Like, subscribe, share, and talk to us. Tell us what you want to hear from us. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.